Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Our class will commence at exactly 5 o'clock. So please, those of you in class, inform your parents very soon. Thank you very much.
Good day, Jessica. Good day, 14th court, and good day to our esteemed facilitator. Jessica, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So once you finish reading the facilitator's bio, please pass the mic back to me. I want to say something for class. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. The ED, the executives of the day, and all party representatives, kilo party representatives. Today, we're going to learn another very interesting, informative class. My name is Jessica Ochugi Daniels, and I am your moderator for today. So our facilitator for today is Mr. Babasola Kuti. I'm going to read a brief biography about him right now. Mr. Babasola Kuti is not a stranger to us. So he is a seasoned politician and entrepreneur, a social analyst, and holds a degree in business information systems with human resource management from Middlesex University Business School in London. Founder of After Products Limited in 19 years, spanning fresh juice segments, consultancy, telecoms, infrastructure, oil and gas, exports and trading. Joint venture introduced smaller denomination mobile recharge vouchers in Nigeria and launched the country's first e-commerce enabled website, Saka, in 1999. Shola Kuti's political journey includes serving as a special
Is it me, Charlie, or she's breaking very seriously?
Yes, it's
Charlie,
breaking.
Okay, so let's see. Charlie, do you have the bio with you?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, it's raining. It's raining here. My
no. Just hold up a bit, Jessica. Just hold up a bit.
Okay.
Since it's raining on your end, so that we have a cohesive front. Where's Lisa? Charlie, are you with the bio? Are you? Who has his bio? Please send it to me. Send it to me via WhatsApp. Just send it to me now. I'll read it. Hello, is anybody there?
Yes, I just sent it to you, D.
You just sent it to me where? WhatsApp.
To your WhatsApp. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'm sorry for the delays. So I'll go ahead and read. I'll start from the top. Sir Babasola Kuti is a seasoned politician, entrepreneur, and social analyst. He holds a degree in business information systems with a human resource management degree from Middlesex University Business School in London. Founder of Afri Products Limited in 1999, he has led innovative ventures for over 16 years, spanning fresh juice and smoothie chains, luxury goods, business development, consultancy, telecoms, infrastructure, oil and gas, exports, and trading. Afri Products technology arm, in a joint venture, introduced smaller denomination mobile recharge vouchers in Nigeria and launched the country's first e-commerce enabled website in circa 1999. Sir Babasola Kuti's political journey includes serving as a special assistant to Senator Tokes Ogunbanjo in the Nigerian Senate from 2003 to 2007. Not a political novice, he aimed for governorship of Lagos in 2015, running an impressive campaign. Additionally, he contributed to the PDP Presidential Campaign Council in the years of 2011 and 2015 elections, advocating for the party's ideals on various platforms, including multiple TV appearances. Passionate about youth involvement in politics, Sir Shola mentors young entrepreneurs, emphasizing the importance of their participation. I think his bio isn't complete. Sir Babasola Kuti has also been a mentor to me. He's who I'll term the opposition's opposition. Because sometimes when I read his tweets or I'm on his Instagram, I'm like, no, he didn't say that. No, he didn't say this. He's a gentleman extraordinaire, somebody I'm proud to call a bon. He deserves a plaque. This is his 14th time on the Electoral College. It's a pleasure to welcome you, sir. And that's why I was very happy to read the bio myself and also happy to welcome you personally. So I welcome Sir Babasola Kuti. And the Electoral College has knighted you. I know you want to check out the sir, but we've knighted you 14 times. Come on, we have to knight you, sir.
Thank you so much, Connie. It's always a pleasure to be here and to be able to share the little bit I've learned in the small years I've been on earth.
Thank you very much, sir. So you can start the class now, sir.
Okay.
We can hear you, sir.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure.
Thank you very much, sir.
So we are going to be looking at the role of opposition in politics. And we're going to be looking at it holistically, as it should be and as it shouldn't be. I always say it's important to always take lessons from even things that are wrong, because the things that are wrong, then you also have an opportunity to learn as well and be able to get better. I hope you can see the slide. If you can, just let me know. Okay, so the role of opposition in politics. We're going to be looking at this in particular reference to Nigeria, our beloved country. And I've titled this "How to Successfully Navigate the Political Terrain as an Opposition Party." I mean, because I'm sure you guys will agree with me that it isn't easy to be in opposition in Nigeria. In fact, sometimes you can't even, you don't know who's in opposition and who isn't, because you just find people kind of across party lines at any point in time. So let's start by defining what opposition is. So usually in a democratic system, the opposition is any party that is not in power. So essentially, if you run an election and you win the election, everybody else becomes opposition. Basically, they are the ones that are going to be opposing you as you run government. In countries like the UK, where they have a parliamentary system, it's completely different. So you have one main party as the ruling party, but then you have the next party who gets the next number of seats, which is basically like, here we don't contest for presidential elections. What they do is everybody contests for their, so let's just say our House of Rep seats. And then when you win, the party with the most seats forms a government, and then the other parties become opposition party. But what also happens in this instance is that the party with the next majority, so the one that comes second, becomes the official opposition party. And here, the interesting thing is that you actually get like to nominate ministers, they call them shadow ministers. And you can say shadow secretaries, but essentially they're ministers. So you nominate a shadow health secretary who then looks at what the actual health secretary is doing and opposes them. And all these people are on salary, the same salary scale. So it's quite interesting. So they empower the party that comes second to actually be able to take government to task. So let's go to the next one. What is the main role of opposition? And it's essentially to be able to hold the government in power, to account for their actions or inactions. So I think that it's fair to say that opposition's job is to hold government accountable. That is the main job of opposition. It's not to win elections. People think opposition, it's not to win, it's actually to hold them accountable, because they obviously come into power with different electoral promises, and they kind of can hold them to say, but you promised to do this, and at the time we told you that it wasn't going to be possible, but you decided to go on that. People voted for you in trust based on that promise, and now you have failed. So the idea basically is that by holding government accountable, then government is forced to act, because government actually doesn't want to lose the next election. So automatically they start to think, oh, these people are bringing out some of the, some good points, that things we didn't do, promises we didn't make. So they're thinking, what can we do to stem this attack from the opposition? So we can call it an attack, but it's actually positive criticism most of the time. And then how does opposition do this? They do so by examining government policies and their actions or inactions. I always say inactions, what they fail to do, and then criticize these actions and policies where necessary, as well as looking at telling them about alternative solutions. It's very important not to just criticize, but to also tell them, well, this is how we would have done it as a party, or this is what we think you should have done. So let's look at some factors that promote good opposition. So we look at things like free and fair elections. I always say that the first thing that you need to have a good opposition is clean elections. You want elections to go as planned, for the opposition to come out and for them to be entitled to also fight for votes, and for that election to be seen as free and fair, so that opposition will not say, you do not deserve to stay in this seat, as we see that happens many times in Nigeria. I think one of the best election examples is MKO's election. There was no doubt in anybody's mind who won the election. There was no, oh, they were ballot snatching, oh, they were shooting people. The person that won the election was not even in government anyway, and didn't have help from government. So it was free and fair because it was seen to be free and fair. Don't get me wrong, a lot of things would have happened in the background that we didn't see, but the fact that you went out to vote, you saw people lining up in a particular side and the other side, and then at the end, they counted the votes in front of you, and that those votes translated to results. Makes you, as opposition, feel that, well, you know what, we lost that election, there's nothing we could have done. The better side won, and you feel a bit happy about it. That means there will be no bitterness, there will be no unnecessary attacks. And basically, it creates the next one, which is a good political climate. So a climate where people are free to speak their mind. The opposition parties can criticize actions or inactions without fear of government retribution. We've seen what has happened in the past in some instances where party officials have been harassed, arrested, attacked, threatened, and all sorts because they've spoken against government. Some have even been forced to join the ruling party, in order to escape prosecution. And then the third thing I think that will promote good opposition is when you have support from the citizens. I think the best example to use is the way we are right now. Because of the fracture of the last elections, you do not see the parties coming together and criticizing some government actions in one voice. Everybody has their own opinion. It's sometimes something happens, one party wants, and you find, that the citizens are like thinking everybody's still taking sides rather than looking at the issues. And for you to be a viable opposition, you need, especially the party that has the biggest chance of winning the election, needs that support from the citizens, because it is that support that will allow you to continue to do what you do without fear or favor, knowing that the citizens back you up whatever decisions you make. And then on the back of that, we can look at factors that prevent good opposition. And so it's the opposite of what everything I've said. A hostile climate, including threat to freedom of speech and association. We've seen that play in Nigeria as well, with people in other political parties being thrown in jail and all sorts of things, and forced to basically cross over unless they will go to the EFCC will prosecute them. And we've seen all sorts. And then we also, see, lack of support from citizens so when citizens are not really interested in what you are saying, you get tired of saying it. Just like, I don't think these people even care anyway. So if, for instance, we've seen some instances where citizens are supporting governors or government for building a 2-kilometer road and saying this is the best government ever, while they can't eat, it really makes the opposition parties think they're wasting their time, and they just basically fizzle out, and they too, they'll go and join the party and say, look, at the end of the day, look, these people that we're even fighting for don't care. So it's very important that citizens support, opposition parties for that reason. Because it's a competition at the end of the day. If you support the one in power, then he can do as he likes, and then he will say, well, the citizens are on my side. Even if I do something wrong, they still support me. So why should I bother? So you do need the opposition parties to hold government's feet to the fire so that they tend to do more for citizens. And then also one of the issues for me that I found is poor quality leadership in the opposition political parties. Like you see during elections, all these so-called chairmen of political parties. And I'm glad everybody's from diverse political parties here, how they are happy and, wearing the badge of their political party with pride, and then getting people to come and buy forms to contest and collecting plenty of money. Once they finish that election cycle and their parties, the smaller parties, have lost the elections, what do? They start to pay solidarity visits to the people that won elections and pledge their support, and it's nonsensical really when you think about it, that as a party, you must stand where you are, till the very end. If you want to go to another party, then cross over quite conveniently. But to still wear the badge of a different party and then be paying solidarity visits to the ruling party because they have won in an election, it makes nonsense of opposition. And then also, if opposition is poorly organized, and we've seen that, look at the PDP today, even the Labour Party today, you can see the effects of poor organization, and so many other parties. But let's look at the major ones. As an example, when in one camp, some people want the chairman of PDP to go. In another camp, some people want him to stay. In another camp, somebody is written a list for people to act as caretaker, chairman of state chapters of the party. In another voice, the party is saying, no, we want a congress. You can see that something is wrong right there. I mean, there's no party where the members and the executive of the party should be speaking in two different voices. Because guess what? The voices that should be listened to more are the voices of the ordinary members, because they are the ones that elected those executives. But in Nigeria, everything is all upside down. You find electives running rampage, having agendas of their own, and basically just pledging loyalty to whoever it is that they feel that can, pay their way. And also, if you look at the Labour Party, the crisis in the Labour Party, honestly, I personally cannot tell you what it is. We have the Lamidi Papa faction crisis, which we all are aware of what has happened there. We know those ones are just jokers trying to just create, an avenue for themselves to make money, and they don't have, really a leg to stand up. But look at how long that has dragged on. Then now there's an Aburi issue where all sorts of things are being thrown around. You can just see that there's the hand of somebody, a third party in there, and that shouldn't be the case if it is properly organized. I'll repeat that. If there is proper organization in opposition parties, they will speak with. We have seen when APC was in opposition, we saw proper organization of opposition. I'm sure you are right. How many people were crossing over to PDP at the time? Everyone was hell bent on getting rid of PDP, and they were all. And I have a lot of elders and people who say that APC is such a disciplined party. I mean, don't get me wrong. Now we see the fractures, but when they were in opposition, they were so disciplined. They were all focused on that goal, that we need to win elections. So let me give you my best example. I don't think there'll be an example that will beat this, although I think with what we're seeing these days, maybe the LP and PDP crisis, if it blooms into what I think it will bloom into, will surpass this as a poor example of opposition. And it's the fuel subsidy saga in 2014. I'm sure many of you are young, but you must have been aware of what happened when people said, no, they're not going above 65 naira per liter. We know it was largely driven on emotion and the need to paint the current governor, Goodluck Jonathan, at the time bad, so that APC could throw the people against them. I mean, for lack of a better word, throw the anger of the people against the government in power. Opposition said fuel subsidy did not exist, and it was a fraud, and resisted the removal of the same food. How can you say something does not exist? Okay, it's fraudulent. People are just going to make money. They say, okay, let's remove it. He said, no, you can't remove it because fuel price will go up to, I can't remember what at the time, 100 and something naira. Today, not only are they subsidizing, in fact, we had 9 years of an APC government. They not only subsidizing, but to add to the insult, the new president actually removed subsidy, declared that subsidy was no longer an item on the budget on May 29, 2023. And today we've heard many rumbles of how subsidy have been brought back through the back door. There's about 5 trillion naira and also. So you can see that this whole subsidy saga at the time in 2014 was really something that either the opposition hadn't researched, or they found it as an easy tool to use to remove the PDP at the time. And another poor example of is this picture just speaks volumes. Here you have 5 people who are not only members of the PDP, but people who, won elections on the platform of the PDP. Then they worked openly against their own party to help the ruling party retain power. And then they still insist they are members of the PDP. I mean, it's the worst example of opposition that we can find in the world today. I think we know that they said at the time, they were largely driven by this whole item agenda that we need to power shift back to the South. They decided to work for the interest of the party who, now check this out, the Peter Obi who left their party, PDP, who had a good run, who was loved by the people. They didn't work for him. He's also from the South. In fact, he's from the South. It's the only region that never produced a president. Well, one of 2. And the Northeast hasn't as well. So, but it's from one of the regions that never produced a president. But the region that is very important to balance this equation of, rotation and zonal shift. But they didn't support him. They went and supported somebody from a party who has never been in the party, who was never their friend, who were, in fact, helped remove our beloved president, Jonathan. And they happened to be, and they still retain their positions as PDP government, which I think makes nonsense of. You can't call these people opposition. I mean, the best word to use for them is traitors. And I say that I would say that for anybody in any other party who says, I'm a member of this party, but I'm working for that party. I think it's nonsense, and we shouldn't tolerate that kind of opposition, because it just makes nonsense of what democracy is trying to achieve by having opposition parties. So what is our role as ordinary citizens, not politicians this time? Is to always see the party in government as, in quotes, an enemy. They largely, when people come into government, even you find in every country, you find they renege on a lot of promises they made during election campaigns. Because when you come to government, the reality is different from the projections when you are outside government. You don't even know what's going on in government half the time. When you get there, you'll be like, is it this bad? We don't have any money. We can't pay salaries. Or what do we do? To think that the same government who fought for minimum wage said the good of Jonathan government was struggling to pay salaries is today borrowing to pay salaries and borrowing to pay loans, shows you that it is more like a lack of, maybe like I say, they came from a point of ignorance. So what we need to do as citizens is stop endorsing or applauding mediocrity. I talked about that earlier. When somebody will do a 2-kilometer road and you want to give him Governor of the Year award. Excuse me. And we need to be greedy. So when governors perform well or elected officials perform well, we just keep on asking for more. Oh, this 50-kilometer road is fantastic, but it would be nice if we had another 100-kilometer road going the other way. Just we keep on because once you start to praise people, they start to feel like gods that get delivered. So we need to make sure that we hold our elected officials accountable. So, and in conclusion, I just say that I've always felt that opposition is even more important than government. Opposition is like the conscience of government should be, in no respects. And the main opposition party may not be the best opposition party in the country, but the idea, and I think we've seen this in the US, in the UK, is to revolve around two strong parties, because there's no point supporting a party that cannot win elections. It's a waste of time. By every time you support a party that cannot win elections, when I say cannot, it's not that like Peter Obi could have won the election. Maybe he did win, who knows? But I'm just saying, but clearly, that a combination of PDP and LP would have clearly won that. They won in 2019. Only that Buhari and the northern power forces did not even budge. They just rigged the election massively. But in this case, you can see where the votes went, and you can see that 15 million votes would have more than won this last election. So, it's the thing I always fight for the most, that politicians should stop thinking about themselves. And if they really mean well for this country, if they really think they can rescue this country, then we need to keep on rotating between at least two parties. So when this one loses out for 8 years, they will scratch their head and say, "Kai, but we messed up, Sha." So what do we do to convince people to vote for us? It's a lot of work. So they spend the next 8 years thinking about what they've done wrong and trying to make amends, and then making other counter promises to counter what they've done wrong, so that people can trust them again. And sometimes it's good to rotate between two parties, because when you get tired of them, just remove them. Let them go and sit down for a while, and you find that you might get a better result in governance. It's not written in stone that you will, but at least once there's competition, it's like everything in business. Once there's somebody else doing something you're doing it well, you have to either perform or you effectively lose out of that field that you're in. Because when every customer goes to the other person and sees how they're doing, what they hear about them, they won't come to you. So it's the same way we have to view politics, and we hope that when we do that, that it will give us, I believe that it will give us a better outcome in governance. So like to say thank you for listening in. I hope that you learned a little bit, and I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for always making time for us. Your classes are always so lively and insightful. Thank you, sir. Okay, it's time for questions. If you have any questions, you can put it on the chat box if you don't want to talk, or raise up your hand so that you'll be given the opportunity to talk. Let's have the questions. You can just raise your hand and you'll be given the opportunity to ask your questions. Okay, we have David, Moses, Abiodun. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for the wonderful lecture delivered by the speaker. My question is majorly on the aspect of opposition. I want to ask, how can opposition party create synergy with citizens, particularly those people that are working in the civil service or public service, as the engine room of the country? How can they create synergy with them without necessarily jeopardizing their career? Because at times some government may suspect some people that they are supporting the opposition party, and when they get to power, they may use the opportunity to deal with those people that support the opposition party during the course of election. And then secondly, in Nigeria, we observe that the media, the opposition party, they lack access to the media space, particularly the major aspect of radio and television, in order for them to voice out. Because what we see in reality is that the party in power use everything possible to make sure that they make sure that the opposition party voice are not heard. Those people cannot hear them out. How can we create a space whereby the opposition party can easily access the media and voice out and let the people know what the government of the day are up to? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those really good questions. I'll take the second one first. So essentially, the media is very expensive. I always tell people this. I've spent it's all like 1 or 2 decades working around the media, so I understand that media can be expensive, and it's never free in Nigeria. The technical truth is that media is not free anywhere. People only want to come to listen to your story if you've got a disaster, something has gone wrong, seriously wrong, or there's a controversy, because the media is only interested in selling, sound bites, newspapers, getting views, so they need to stay alive. So the first thing that, kills opposition parties in Nigeria is the media, because if opposition parties are not in government and they don't have funds to pay for their media, then they just get blocked out. The good thing about the bad as that may be, the good thing is that also there are laws that actually say that if you, for instance, want to interview somebody from one political party to give his views on a particular issue, you should also, always ask for the opposite person in the other party to also come and give the right of reply, so to speak. That's what it is. And so that then gives the media a little bit of basically no room to escape from inviting the opposition when national issues are, because that's why I see that on Democracy Day, we start to see a lot of opposition parties on TV complaining on the first year anniversary of the president. They invite them, and between you and me, the truth is that when they what they try and do, the media, they invite the opposition first to come, and they without call the ruling party, they come home. Labour Party is coming to talk about your 1 year in office. People better send somebody. That way they get the two sides, and they also use the opportunity to fleece the ruling party for some words. So it's very difficult to have a free and fair, media space when the media is highly unprofitable in Nigeria. I'll say so. It's a challenge. On the other one of government employees, I think people should be free. While they do not, the civil service rule says a government worker cannot engage in politics. It doesn't say that they cannot be, for instance, party agents. They cannot be supporters. They cannot be members of a political party. It doesn't say that. I think, if I'm correct, it says that they cannot engage. So if you, for instance, I know people who work sort of like maybe not in the civil service, but they would then step down from their job and take a leave of absence to go and contest an election. If they get the ticket, then they'll get resigned from that job and contest the proper election. Or if they win the election, then they'll have to resign or something like that within 30 days or something, or before they can contest the candidate, they have to resign. So the point is that, where do you draw the line between somebody actually playing party politics and just being a citizen who just likes a party better? Because I remember in the old days, my dad was a member of the UK. He worked for civil service university, and it wasn't hidden. All the lecturers had their different political divides, and they acted as agents for some of the political parties at the time. I don't know if things have changed significantly, but it's extremely difficult for you to encourage people who are sitting in a government seat to work against, for instance, a particular party. For instance, who in civil service will openly be talking against APC right now? I mean, it'd be suicide. And they'll just find a way to frustrate the person or transfer the person somewhere else. So I think what we probably need is probably some kind of legislation that strengthens the ability of people to, be able to participate in politics without, caring about which side of the divide they are on, as long as they don't do it during their office hours and they don't use it. They don't use it to influence the outcome of a particular aspect of their job. So, for instance, you feel because you don't like this party, if somebody comes and you think he likes that, you're not going to help him and things like that. So I think that it's tough in Nigeria because people can be indisciplined. So if you give them a little bit of leeway, they might abuse that as well. So it's I think I don't know if I answered your question, but it's very hard to get a balance when you are a government worker already and then you're trying to play politics.
Okay. Thank you, sir. There is a question in the chat box. It says, how can fake propaganda strengthen opposition?
I mean, propaganda is a useful tool in politics. People think that propaganda is a bad word, but it isn't a bad word. It's a word that means you're spreading information, more or less. It doesn't mean you're spreading false information. Just you are creating a narrative around an issue to favor yourself as a political party. And I think that I don't like the use of state. I don't like the use of state machinery as tools. Like, for instance, if the state has a television station, I don't know if I'm answering the question correctly. I don't want the station not to be able, somebody else from another party not to be able to use that station for the purposes of selling themselves or talking about issues that affect the state. I think that it is wrong for states to, and I think it's not only wrong, it's actually illegal for a state to use, like the way NTA, I mean, sometimes when you watch NTA, you'll be thinking to yourself that, what country are they in? If anything happens in government, for instance, and you watch NTA, they will not even talk about it. They will just, the first thing, the most important item of the news will be the president caught a ribbon today, and you'll be thinking, have these people not heard? That for me is like the worst form of, propaganda, so to speak. It's wrong, and I think states should encourage their TV stations to also allow opposition voices. Even the government should do that as well. I think it's the fair thing to do, and that's what the law says: freedom of speech and freedom of association. I think if we can follow the Constitution, then I think we won't have that issue.
Okay. Thank you, sir. There is Isaac James. Isaac James, you can ask your question.
Okay, good evening. This is Isaac James from Jos. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, go on,
We
please.
can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, my challenge is I've discovered sometimes the government doesn't want opposition at all. I'm here in Plateau State right now. There was a time that there was this particular radio station, a private radio station, that was owned by a former governor who was in opposition, you know, and then their content was basically, you know, an opposition team that was always against the government that was in power. And it was legit because we, the citizens in the state, were behind them and were in support. To our surprise, the broadcast commission, whatever they call them, you know, they banned the station. You know, it was locked down for some months, and our voice was shut down as a result. My question is there any law in the constitution that is against such action by the government? That's my question.
Well, it's not whether there's a law. The Constitution says that everybody should have the freedom of speech. It means that you need to be heard.
Okay.
You got the Constitution. It also says you have the freedom of association, which means that you have the right to belong to any organization you want to, religious, political, and otherwise. The third thing is that there's also a law that brought about the formation of the Broadcast Organization of Nigeria on how media should be used. And those laws are very extreme. I say, look, the laws are extremely strict about how you use media, how you should not deny anybody their voice, because once you deny them their voice, then you deny them the right of freedom of speech. I said
Who? Thank God.
Okay, I think Isaac, you need to mute. Sorry, okay, so basically, if you deny somebody the appearance on a program or the right to reply, then you also deny them their rights and freedoms of association and rights to free speech. I think that there are laws in place, but as you know, the laws are made for just the poor people. The rich people don't obey the laws. The people in government and in power don't need to obey the laws. Because at the end of the day, you ask yourself, even when they break the laws, who's going to hold them to account? Is it the same people that they have appointed into office? So I think there lies the problems, and that's why maybe in years past you've heard it calls for a more independent police, a more independent INEC, so that these people are dissociated with government and they actually don't end up being like an extra tool that government can use against opposition.
Thank you, sir. Ibrahim Jari, you can ask a question.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Presenter. Good evening, madam. Even though I cannot hear you very well because my name is Ibrahim Jari, I'm speaking from Katsina. I'm not hearing the sound very well. Please rectify the problem. My question is, sir, in some other countries, you will see that opposition parties organize themselves to form a shadow government, like in some other advanced countries. But I have never heard of this in Nigeria. Why do you think this cannot be done in Nigeria? Thank you very much.
That's a fantastic question, Ibrahim. And in the beginning of my presentation, I talked about how the parliamentary system works, different from the presidential system. And the reason why we don't have shadow cabinets in Nigeria is because the laws do not allow for such. Although, that said, some of us who were in the PDP after 2015 had suggested that we can still form a shadow cabinet and the party will fund that shadow cabinet itself. Because in the UK, for instance, the government still pays the salaries of the shadow cabinet. It's the most absurd thing. So it's like PDP forming a shadow cabinet and the APC will now still be as government. It's responsible, it's written in the law. They have to pay those salaries equivalent to what their own ministers are receiving. So so that those people are at the same level as them, they have the same salary, the same lifestyle, the same allowances, so that they can really challenge these people, and they have the same staffing. So they have like researchers, assistants, people that can do the job of digging around information and giving them, really good, solid information they can use to act as opposition. So I think that in the past, we have suggested these kind of things in Nigeria as well. Even within the PDP, we suggested that, look, instead of wasting money on jamboree, our governors should instead, invest in, creating a shadow cabinet and paying them well, giving them cars, giving them staff. So these people are like, they are the level of ministers within, Nigeria, and they can then function so that when we are dealing with, like information, that we're not just saying, they are doing badly. We actually have we have a team with a good research team enough to be able to challenge the government with actual facts and statistics. But, I think it's something that we are looking at in our constitution. I think the National Assembly has tried a few times to toy with the idea of slightly bending to a parliamentary system. And I think for me, it's important because in this country, for instance, before you can become a minister or a member of cabinet, you have to have won an election in your local area. So you have to, first of all, be a House of Rep member before you can then be selected as a minister or anything in this country. If you don't, you can't find a normal citizen. This guy is my friend, or this guy was in Oxford University with me. Let me appoint him as a minister. He will have to first of all go and win elections in the local area and become a member of parliament before he can be selected as a minister or appointed as a minister. So those are kind of things that make it a bit difficult, because even if you fail as a minister, it might also affect your election back home, because when they see that this guy is doing rubbish, they will not vote for you again. If you don't come back, that's the end of your career. So, it's, I think here the reward system is so heavily monitored that, that there are consequences for your failures across board. So it will also help us. We've said this, I think even the 2014 confab said the same thing, that this presidential system doesn't work. It doesn't work for us in Nigeria at all. We need a system that is slightly more robust, that will allow people to be able to really fight for, office, rather than people just, using favoritism or cronyism to appoint, their friends and relatives.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. In the chat box, Jerry Alkali is asking, how can we encourage parties to develop ideologies or frameworks of ideas so that there can be a true opposition, just like first world countries, not politicians jumping parties?
I think, again, I always tell people that you'll be amazed if you looked at for instance, the PDP. When I looked at the manifesto, I was quite shocked. Well, not surprised, because of the people that founded the PDP and the ideals and what they wanted for Nigeria, this free and fair kind of system. But a friend of mine who I knew always told me that an agreement is only as good as the person that signs it. So if you send an agreement to the criminal, you can be sure that he's not going to keep to the terms of that agreement. So yes, we can do manifestos and make laws. Look at all the rules the PDP made in terms of anti-party activity. What happens when somebody does anti-party activity? What forms anti-party? But yet today, nobody has sent anybody to a disciplinary panel. That just tells you that there's something wrong with us as individuals in Nigeria. I keep on saying that, look, you can point to any politician, call him corrupt, call him crooked, but when you look around you, if you happen to be one of the people that lives above board, and you don't do stupid things and you are not corrupt in your dealings, when you look around you, everybody is doing something. Everybody is like that person in government. If some of your relatives have been in government, you will see that once they get into office, everything changes. People that used to come to your house and you can't even find them on the phone. In fact, 2 days ago, I was calling one of my friends because someone wanted to have a meeting with him. I couldn't even get him. I messaged him, called him. I was like, what's wrong with these people? I've had friends before, even when I was much younger, 10 years, 15 years ago, who were governors, who I would pick up my phone and call, and then there was no WhatsApp. They would answer the phone and say, I'm in a cabinet meeting, I'll call you back. So when I see people behaving like this, you just know that they have no true character. And that's the exact problem with Nigeria, that people will shout and tell you, oh, these people are corrupt. The people that were shouting that Jonathan was corrupt yesterday are now in government. Always remember that. Buhari that shouted that Jonathan was corrupt and PDP was corrupt came into government, and the government became the most corrupt government in the history of this country. Somebody printed money and nobody knew who gave him authority to print money. Somebody faked the president's signature and nobody has been, So the point I'm trying to make is that the problem with making rules and laws is not putting them on paper. It's people implementing them. Do people have the heart and soul to be able to look at that thing and say, this thing makes sense. Let us do it like this so that the country can move on. Or when they get to power, they'll be like, so it is now when I'm governor, they want to stop corruption. No, let me eat my own money first. All those kind of selfish things. It's difficult because you see this thing time after. You see people who are dead poor, and they get into government and they're so rich overnight. Then you want to tell somebody else who goes in government that don't steal. They'll say, okay, no problem. So it's difficult. It's not just, Nigeria has good laws, not great laws, but no country does. I don't think that the UK doesn't have a constitution. Can you believe it? This country has no constitution. So they are governed by faith, love, and by belief, by what they believe is right. They don't have a piece of paper telling them what to do. And, because of that, it just tells you that, there is no need to keep on making all these laws if people are not going to obey. And the only people who obey laws if you hold them to account for their actions when they break those laws. Once you don't do that, then there's no point having the law.
That's true. Thank you, sir. There's another question in the chat. I think that's the last one. Do you believe by Idi Abi Joseph? Do you believe independent candidacy will help serve as better opposition? Because we have seen already that most people have alliances with 2 or more parties in Nigeria.
Yes, 100%. I think the best example of an independent candidate technically was Peter Obi. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I'm not a great fan. I didn't support the LP or anything, but I just think that what he did was magic. He proved a lot of things, that if you do well in life, you make the right noise, you know how to sell yourself, that you can break barriers that nobody had ever broken. The same thing Abiola did. People always say that Abiola knew he was going to be president. I always tell them, no, Abiola was just a kind, generous man who understood that leaving a legacy of kindness, of helping people to, Abiola wasn't a guy that had money and just gave people money. Somebody could come to him and say, I want to go to school, but I can't pay my school fees. He would say, what year are you in? He would pay the guy's school fees for them, give him an allowance, and tend to keep him posted about his progress. It means that the guy was in touch with at that time when there was no mobile phone. So the point I'm trying to make is that, at the end of the day, it's about what you do, how you present yourself. And it doesn't matter whether Labour Party was not, Labour Party had not even won any election, really, apart from Ondo State, when Mimiko used them, and again, Mimiko proved that an unknown party can do it. So those guys are independent candidates in my world. I don't see them as members of the Labour Party because they were never in the party before they contested. In fact, if not for them, we wouldn't even know what Labour Party was. And I think that, yes, that is the evidence you need to say that independent candidacy is something that, if allowed, would definitely change the thing. The only problem, I have to say this, is that when you then win as an independent candidate, you have no support from anybody. You don't have anybody that's ever held political office supporting you. Just some guys wearing tie and shirts from Harvard University. The country is going to burn under. You can see what's happening today. You need to also be a good politician to mind a country so diverse like Nigeria. You can't just be a good person. You have to be a person. Jonathan was a great guy. Well, look at what Nigeria was like, the bomb capital of the world under Jonathan. Because some people will just wake up and decide, we need to do everything to get rid of this guy, even if people have to die. And that's the part of policy I always tell people, that the only people that win elections in Nigeria are people like the Tinubus and the Atikus and all those kind of people, because they actually have a political legacy. Nigeria is not the kind of country where you win because you have money, or there has to be something, that drives all that. And then when you win, winning the election is not the hard part. It is being able to be in power successfully. And I think that even Peter Obi would have struggled, even worse than Tinubu is struggling now, because everything would have been thrown at him. I'm sure the bombs would have started blowing again, that you can quote me anywhere. Because I know that some people would have just been so unhappy. And again, if you do not play the game well, which he doesn't play, then people will be like, this guy cannot stay here for 8 years. We will die now or longer. Because I know there are too many rent seekers in Nigeria that live off the state. So if anybody comes that wants to upset that, equation, they're going to do everything to stop it. I think that will be the final note for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. There is no other question. For those of you that are complaining about network, you can find the lecture on the YouTube channel of the college. Thank you so much, sir, for making time for us. We appreciate you. Thank you. Charlie, is there any announcements? Or Maureen? Okay, Lisa.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. Thank you so much, sir. It's always a pleasure having you. Okay, I think he has even left. All right, so well done, everyone. You've submitted your assignments. Remember that campaign starts on Tuesday next week, and the debates will be on Wednesday, and your elections will hold on Thursday. And I hope that the projects are also going on already. Remember that next week is the deadline. So have a lovely evening, everyone, and see you tomorrow. Okay, Maureen, you can end the class. You have the host function.